Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Global Pulse with me, Neha Khanna. Tonight, let's talk about a striking and deeply consequential question for American democracy. When Donald Trump signals that he may not rule out serving a third term in the White House, despite the clear language of the US Constitution forbidding it, what exactly is going on? What does it tell us about the state of American politics? And does this kite flying exercise signal a larger and devious design to cling to power by any means possible? The first time this came up was in March this year when Trump told NBC News that he was not joking about the possibility of a third term. He said, and I quote, "There are methods by which you could do it." And when asked whether one such method might be that Vice President J.D. Vance runs in 2028 and then hands over the job to him, Trump replied, "Well, that's one method, but there are others too." He added, "A lot of people want me to do it. I basically tell them, we have a long way to go, it's very early in the administration." Now Trump says he does not rule out running for a third term. Speaking to reporters on board Air Force One on Monday, Trump said, "I would love to do it. I have the best numbers ever." He even falsely claimed that his poll numbers are at a high point.
Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously, the vice president is great. Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously, the vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. And I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? You'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't.
You said you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House or the White House counsel to your legal position?
No, you'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not. It wouldn't be right.
"I'd love to do it," says Donald Trump. Some of his closest aides are talking about it even more openly, brazenly, and repeatedly, almost as if they're testing the waters. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon has declared in interviews, "We are working on it. Couple of alternatives. We'll see what the definition of term limit is." Bannon has called Trump an instrument of divine will and insists that Trump will run and win again in 2028. These remarks at first glance may sound like mere rhetoric, but make no mistake. They are also political signals, not only to Trump's supporters, but also to his opponents, to Congress and the judiciary. They raise the prospect of a major constitutional and democratic confrontation. The US Constitution addresses this issue directly. The key provision is the 22nd Amendment to the United States Constitution, ratified in 1951, which states, "No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice." That limitation applies whether the terms are consecutive or non-consecutive. Further, the 12th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of the president shall be eligible to that of Vice President of the United States. Legal scholars almost uniformly conclude that the Constitution makes a third elected term for Trump legally impossible. They argue there is no way such an amendment to allow a third term would meet the thresholds. There is no wiggle room on the rule that a president cannot be elected more than twice. The rules are clear. Any credible pathway to a third term would require a constitutional amendment, an exceedingly difficult, politically unlikely process, as it would require 2/3 of both houses of Congress plus ratification by 3/4 of the states. So what do we make of all this? On one level, you can view these statements as kite flying, floating ideas to stir discussion, rally the base, freeze opponents, and maintain political leverage. He hasn't yet proposed a concrete legal mechanism beyond vague methods. But given the ambition of Donald Trump and also some of his allies, such as Steve Bannon, and the historical shockwaves around third-term limits, there is a real risk of this becoming a fundamental constitutional test and a showdown between the text of the Constitution and a sitting president seeking to stretch, reinterpret, or circumvent those limits. If the strategy moves from talk to action, for example, a serious campaign to amend the Constitution or a maneuver to install Trump via a vice presidential route, or a prolonged attempt to hold on to power past the end of his term, then we would indeed be staring at perhaps the biggest constitutional crisis in American history since the Civil War era. In that sense, the kite flying could be the warning flash. It may be testing how far institutional norms can be stretched and term limits, whether they're truly inviolable or negotiable, if a powerful enough political actor builds momentum. The sheer symbolism of a president openly challenging the two-term limit triggers concern for what it means for separation of powers, democratic accountability, and political norms. Public opinion suggests that many Americans are concerned indeed. A poll reported by The Independent found that more than half of Americans believe Trump will attempt to serve a third term. 21% said definitely, 31% said probably. That reflects anxiety among Americans over threats to constitutional order, even if legally a third term remains highly unlikely. Experts are warning about the danger of the rhetoric itself. Even if the legal barriers are strong, the undermining of norms, the constant casting of the presidency as something unconstrained by limits, weakens democratic and constitutional guardrails. So how are the Democrats reacting? Representative Dan Goldman from the state of New York quickly introduced a House resolution reaffirming that the term limits apply and that Trump is ineligible for a third term. Senators such as Chuck Schumer and other lawmakers have condemned the idea of a third term as a direct threat to democracy. Remember, just 10 days ago, the No Kings protests held across thousands of locations in all 50 American states gathered momentum to protest what organizers described as the authoritarian drift of the Trump presidency and the idea of unlimited executive power. Ultimately, this moment poses a test for American democracy's resilience. It's not just about whether Trump will actually attempt a third term. It also probes whether the constitutional structures, norms, and institutional guardrails that have for decades prevented concentration of executive power still stand. If the term limit constraint remains firm and Congress, courts, states, and public opinion resist any last-minute tactics, then democracy in the US may emerge stronger. It would be a reaffirmation that even a popular or powerful president cannot transcend the rule of law. But if the rhetoric becomes action, if political actors begin treating term limits as optional, then the implications would be extremely grave. Time will tell how serious the attempt becomes, but even now the message is clear. The limits of presidential power are up for discussion. And in that debate lies a major test of America's democratic architecture.